Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Supercoach Challenges, and today we will be looking at some options to finish up your team or maybe replace a few players who are still missing or have now been ruled out, such as Clayton Oliver, who's now missing again, and Elliot Yeo, who was reported out with a hip injury for 3 to 4 weeks. So for those who brought him in, a lot did bring him in last week as well. It's going to be a bit of a pain for you guys, but no matter, we have got some interesting choices that could be chosen from, and it's good to have a little bit of something different in your team. So maybe instead of picking, the popular player that everyone's got for a bit of safety, maybe go for something a little bit different, because a lot of our teams are going to look pretty similar by the end of this year, and it's always good to have something a little bit different. But before we get into that, if you feel like it, leave a like. Give us a subscribe. That would be great for the channel. And let's get into it. So now there's a few players that are getting close, right? Getting close. Now, what I'm going to say is I'm going to leave out the 600Ks. I think that at this point, we're probably low on money slash maybe even 550. So low on money slash trades. So you're probably wanting to just do a one trade swap, maybe making some money considering you're losing a player and getting someone in. So I think top of the list of something different is Dan Houston. Now, this was flagged in my last week's video regarding Houston. The thing with him is you could wait another week. Essendon is quite a good matchup, though. What are they against defense? Well, they rank 6th against defense, so it's not the best scoring team for defenders, but 119 break even as well. So as I said, you could wait with Houston. You might lose 5 to 10K, but I think the thing with Houston as well is that he is a bit of a hard pick to read, because over previous years he's shown glimpses of being able to do what he has done since round 5, and then he's given up stuff like what he did in round 13 pretty frequently as well. So, which was his 47. So you could wait one more week, just confirm that he's not going anywhere. He's still gonna be getting a lot of the ball. Especially off the bye, and yeah, you can move on it then. Scrolling down, so there's been a lot of talk, and I'm probably going to bring this one up first, about Mills. So Mills had quite a bad return, you could say. I think he was subbed out in this game against West Coast, which was because they were absolutely belting him. And if you look into the stats with Mills, he was only on field 55%. And, if you're looking to finish off your team, Mills could be an option. Now, the problem with him is he is injury prone. He did do his calf this year and miss 6 games. So it's not necessarily a guy you want to be maybe finishing your team with, but it could be someone that you bring in as a, last midfielder, 8th or 9th midfielder, and you loop him, and then get his good scores when he does have them. Would be a super pod, and he's going to be really, really cheap. Like if he goes badly against Geelong, and it's good because you can wait another week for this to see this, he could go down 40, 50K and be in the 390s, 380s, which is so cheap for someone of Mills caliber. That would be what? Another 48K is what, 250K down? That would be absolutely wild for a player of his talent. And, if he can come back and play well, you could see some massive scoring from him. I mean, if we look at last year, I think he had an injury mid-season as well. So he got through the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He got through the first 12, or maybe it was at the end of the year. Oh no, he played the full year last year. Okay, I was incorrect. I thought he missed a game, but I was incorrect. But anyway, as you can see, he did have quite good scoring. He dropped off a little bit near the end of the year, but at 380K, you could do a lot worse. And I think that not many people are going to risk it on him, but he could be a great differentiator come the end of the year. Now, there might be a few people who are stuck with Gawn, which is an issue, because, I mean, some people traded into him from Darcy when he went down, or for other reasons, money reasons, maybe when English was at his high and came down. and kind of got stuck with him. I mean, a lot of people went to Briggs, but there are still 7%, 7.5% of owners out there. Now, Gorn only has a break even of about 90, which is great. Because if he scores an 80-70, you're probably losing, 10K, and he goes to about 498. And I mean, this is pretty niche, but Sean Darcy could be there to take. And the good thing is you'll get to see another game of Sean Darcy before you have to make the decision, because Darcy could be down to 470 himself, which means you could make money off a trade to Gorn. This is from Gorn. This is probably fraught with a little bit of danger because not Edwards, Jackson has been playing so well for Fremantle, which might be affecting your scoring, and also the fact that you'd be using a trade for not much gain. You're probably wanting to go up to an English or something like that if you're going to do it, but just to keep in mind that, if you're really struggling for money and Darcy does go big this week, it could be a bit of a sideways trade to Gorn, especially if he does it against English, because it probably points to the fact that maybe it was just a little bit of a bad one after his first game back, because it was Darcy's first game back, so you could probably be a bit easy on him for having a bad score. I mean, look at the rest of the year. It was pretty good, other than this North game where Goldie must have got a hold of him. I mean, West Coast, Adelaide, Gold Coast, really good scoring, even the Bulldogs as well. So, and then went absolutely ham against Sydney. So he's got Sydney again. He's also got West Coast again. Hawthorn he went badly against, but Port have also been known to be pretty bad against ruck, so he could have a nice end to the season. And I guess those are the niche, probably more popular picks. Now, if we look further through this, if we're going to look at, guys like Cripps, I'd probably skip on Cripps. I mean, 14.5% have him anyway, so it's not like you're getting a massive pod there. And I'd rather just anti-pod Cripps, to be honest, because he seems to do this every year. He goes really well at the start, and then he just drops off. And this is actually probably a worse year than last year, I would suggest. If we look at this here, you look at his start of the year, was absolutely crazy. Then he had that injury, and then backed it up at 139, 138, 151, and then kind of had a dropped off back end here. So it's really hard because Cripps is such a good midfielder. We know how good he is, but it's just been that you've had to just let him go through to the keeper. Even if he does go big a few weeks, he just seems to always have a 50 or 60 around the corner. Feel like it's one that people could get on next year as a mid-pricer as well, and he could go really well if we can get that body right. But at the moment, and if Carlton start to win, you'd have to assume at some point, but they would. I think like last year they were playing a bit better than that. Well, quite a bit better than this year, even though they didn't make finals, which was one of the reasons why he scored a bit better as well. Brad Crouch is actually a really interesting pick in the fact that he is pretty consistent. Like, if we look at his scoring, he has a low of 60, but they've all sat at around 80 to 100. And the last 4 rounds, he's played really well through the midfield, averaging 3 rounds, probably 110, 104, 5 round. And St Kilda have Optus and then a just massive run at Marvel, including and even one of those ones that aren't at Marvel is against Gold Coast. And he's got probably 4 of the next 5 are really, really friendly. Even, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So even 6 of the next 7 are really, really friendly. And even the Geelong games at Marvel. And who knows where they'll be at that point. So Brett Crouch could be quite an interesting pick, especially at a lower price. But there are probably a few around him who are a little bit more interesting. I think people jumped on Redmond. It's only 5%, 5.5% out on Redmond. I just don't really like him and Ridley at all as choices. Even though Ridley has been so good, it seems to be at the detriment to Redmond. And then at some point, you're probably going to see the switch and Redmond start playing really well and Ridley drop off. And maybe that's because they have got an inkling Redmond might leave, that they're trying to now play Ridley back in that back line a bit more. So maybe that's why this is happening. Nevertheless, I would just skip out on that. Scrolling down, Bailey Dale, nice price. The problem with Dale is obviously the fact that if Ed Ridges comes back, who knows how that back line um, role was going to be, especially because like his average has been 90 for the year, even after a 5 round of 109. And that's pretty much since Richards has left. So I think that Dale was probably one I would be skipping on as well with the Dogs. And I think there's probably a couple more low price players that are a bit more interesting. Just on the defense, I actually think Ollie Wines is a really interesting player as well. Like his 3 rounds, 107 with a 5 round of 105. And the reason Wines is interesting is he is 80K down on what his price was last year, but the fact that Poor keep winning seems you'd think would be pretty conducive to Wines scoring really well. And we know that a lot of this has, like his bad scoring has been down to the fact that he was playing. He came back injured and was building up his fitness, and I feel like this could build up and be quite good at the back end. Port Adelaide, I haven't really looked at their fixture much, but I assume it's not too bad. Yeah, I mean that probably this stretch of three is a bit hard, but outside of that, it's quite good for a midfielder scoring. So, yeah, I think like Wines at 1.7% could be a really nice pod. And someone who actually scores quite well. I would, if you're thinking about Sada, I think that we look at his start of the year, even what he scored last year. Like, it was so good to start, and then he got this. This was where he got that ankle injury in an 85. He obviously missed round 6, and then he's come back and just not really been able to pick up the form he had. I think that Carlton have kind of shifted towards his teammate in Doherty a bit more, and I think that is why you would probably pass over Sard and go up to Doherty instead. Coming off some decent scores, I think this is insane. This is if you were to pick out a Sard and Doherty, I'd be going Doherty. We know that Doherty can score really, really well, like especially in his past, he's been able to do that. My only problem with Doherty is they have tended to throw him around a bit into the midfield through the back line, and I don't know if it's just to do with champion data, but his score, the way he plays, hasn't really been hugely conducive to our scoring. We know that he had a massive 38 possession game and was only able to put together like a 90. And that to me kind of tells you that either something's changed with champion data or Doherty's play style isn't really as good as it was for scoring, or it was just an unlucky game. But he has bounced back since this injury. The other problem is injury with him. I think like between him and Houston, for example, if we're looking at it, I'd probably rather Houston based on, because I think Houston has had injuries over the years, but based on the fact that Houston's kind of kept on the field a little bit more than Doherty this year, even though Doc only missed one game, it seemed, I actually missed 2 or 3. So even though I only missed 2 to 3, I just prefer Houston on a winning team where it looks like he's pushing up as more of an attacking defender. As we discussed Brayshaw and Salem. If there's something that tickets fancy, maybe have a look at them. Will Day, so he's not really potish, but in 20% of teams, he's scoring really, really well with that back line. We know Sicily, and has quite a nice run from 16 to 20. 21, 22, 23, 24 look to be a little bit hard, but I mean, Collingwood haven't necessarily been the hardest for mids to score off, where he'll probably be back in. And you could do a lot worse at the price range. He's got the defender mid swing, which is really, really nice. And he could be quite a good scoring option, but by the end of the year. Now, we know that in the Supercoach Challenge team, we started Naish Wanganeen Messiah Wanganeen Malira, but he just never really picked up at the start of the year, like 52.76. It's just so disappointing. It really, really frustrates me that a player that you took as a pod at the start of the year as a mid-pricer when others like Setterfield, etc., has played so poorly at the start and is now being considered as a player that should be in your teams. And to be honest, I can't blame people for looking to put him in their teams. The run through Marvel, as we discussed with St Kilda players, is really, really nice. And I think that I think the role is more set with Wanganeen Malira, I guess. I mean, compared to Day, much more set in his role. And if Sinclair moves out of there, it's kind of his place to roam free. As I discussed in that last video, and if you haven't seen that video, please go check it out, because I do go through a few of these more riskier pot options. And as we know, one of them has already fallen in Yo, but there's still 5 others there. And Wangani Malira, I think, was one of them. And so was this man, Jarman Impey, who I think I was watching Mitchell on Footy Classified, and it kind of seemed like they were quite happy playing Impey back there in that back pocket and giving him a bit more of the distribution, especially with Sicily not in the team. I feel like they've turned to Impey and gone, all right, you're more of a senior body back here. There's a lot of guys in the back line that are a bit younger. We want to run the ball through you a bit more. And that's probably where Day's come into it as well, and why he scored so well. But I think that Impey could do that as well. We looked at the maps and we saw that was happening. Jesus. If we look at averages, I mean, if you don't have Briggs, then probably no point getting him now. He doesn't have DPP. If there's a DPP forward ruck, you'd probably have taken him over Darcy Cameron, to be honest, but he's not. And I think the train has been missed on that one. Sam Walsh actually could be really interesting. Probably one that you shouldn't bet on, or like you shouldn't be betting on players for DPP, but that's what Walsh could get with a mid forward role. But I think a lot of us would have a lot of mid forwards, so I just don't necessarily think this is one that you need to go for. And I think he's got the same issue as Cripps, where Carlton just seem like a team that you can't read. You can't read who's going to score. The actual only player who seems to have been relevant so far and been playing really well in this back half is Chera. So if you want to go for Chera, have a look. But I think he's worth 600k these days. Yeah, 603k, and I just don't think you can pay that much for Chera. I feel like that's buying peak Chera, is what I'll say. I mean, going down here, probably not much else you want to really look at. I mean, Ridley's here, and as I said, the problem with him was Redmond. I feel like I've just been hurt by Ridley so much. I think the funny thing is I was thinking about how he got concussed like a couple years ago after he was going like hundreds, just really consecutively. And then he got that injury and then came back and started scoring poorly. And it was a concussion injury, and now he's got concussed this year and come back and he's going 130s all the way through. I funnily enough think it's more to do with Redmond possibly leaving than Ridley playing in a different role. I think he's playing with a lot more confidence than what I saw at the start of the year. I used to watch Ridley a lot, and it used to look like at the start of the year he was very much stuck in the position. He didn't really want to run off plays. He was kind of trying to just stop them from getting the ball, which, I mean, obviously like what you're supposed to be doing as a defender, but rather than, run and be attacking, he was playing more of a defensive key defender role, which he looks to have been released a bit from now. It's like kind of like Brad Scott, as he's seen with Merritt playing so well, he's kind of said, oh yeah, Jordan, you used to be really good at freeing yourself up and getting intercept marks, so maybe that's probably what you should continue to do. And funnily enough, he started scoring really well, and it's kind of has timed with the turnaround that Merritt had as well. So yeah, just a little bit interesting there. As I said, I've spoken about guys like Salem and guys like Impey as well. Scrolling down here, geez, Texas would have been very nice to get. If you wanted a money play on Tex before that West Coast game, it's actually the way to go, because he's going to make 160k in 3 weeks. If he goes 108, which is a very probably easy feat for Tex, he could go 120 here. He's going to make 70k. And he's in a Coleman race now as well, so it could be very easily that Tex is, their go-to in that forward line to try and get him up there, because he's never won a Coleman, and probably one of the best field kicks in the game, even now in his old age. So when I say, so I shouldn't say, well, he's a good field kick, but I'm more set shot. Like, he's a really good set shot, and I think that could be his year the way it's going, especially with some guys going down. But Charlie Curnow is going to be there to stop him by the looks as well. Ben Keys. So I was saying Ben Keys a while ago. like when he was pretty low price and he comes up against North, like, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to get him before this West Coast game. Um, because the way I saw it, and I've, made a quick 100K off keys now, is that if he went big against West Coast, it was like kind of not worth it at 418 to go. And I feel like now the role looks like it's more locked in against Collingwood. Like, problem was, right, everyone thought that he was going to tag against Collingwood with Dacos. So if you were going to go him, it felt like West Coast was the time to go him, because for me, even though he had the bye the next week, my team was kind of set up for that. And it felt like if you got him against West Coast, you were probably going to get a good score, because mids and forwards always score well against them. Then against Collingwood, you could probably cop a bad tagging roll and get a bad score. But you wouldn't want to bring him in to get that bad score. But he in the end went well in both, and it kind of really solidifies the fact that he might have more of a midfield role, especially with the 78% CBAs. And I also did look at it like in the future with what his like run home was, and North Essendon and GWS is a really nice 3, especially at Adelaide Oval for 2 of those. Melbourne's going to be a hard game, but mids do tend to score fairly well. And then like Port is always a close game. Midfielders do decently, and Gold Coast should be pretty good for him. And then you got like Sydney and West Coast at the end. Brisbane's probably the real hard one, but it is a revenge game for him. So he might actually try and turn it up quite a bit. So that is my thoughts on Keys. I still think you probably should get him in, but the value's definitely lost. It's not a value pick anymore. It's more of a definite like M6 pick. Sorry, not M6, F6 pick. Then the other one's obviously Harry Himmelberg. If I can find him. His average is like, what, 79? Coming. Is it here? I didn't think he was that good. It's not. All right, where's this? This isn't through. Let's just type in Himmelberg. Maybe it's 89. Average. Oh no, the average is 69. That's why I was nearly at him. But yeah, Himmelberg is also an interesting pick. I think we can forgive him for this last low score because it was against Fremantle. Sorry, not West Coast. Fremantle, where the ball just wasn't there. Now, looking at the next few games, like Melbourne are probably not going to get it back there a fair bit. Hawthorn potentially no, but then Adelaide should. Gold Coast will be a close game. Like quite a few games where he could get a lot of the ball back there, and it looks like he is settled there. The funny thing is, this is kind of one I would be happy to antipod in my team if I didn't need like the fact that he was so cheap and that he does have the potential to score so well. Because if he was like 450, 500K, I think I'd just be skipping Himmelberg. But the fact that he's 390 kind of makes it a lot more compelling, especially with the defender forward status. And I think that he's a fine pick, I would say. I think it's kind of one, if you're going to go there, you want to kind of try and have a plan to get another defender, like a D7 that you can loot with Himmelberg. Because I think there are going to be some down games, and if his role changes, it could be absolutely disastrous. But the defender forward status is great for DPP. I'm just trying to think, is there anyone that's kind of like really, really out there and interesting? Let's scroll down this a little bit. The bye last week's kind of hard as well. It's not like you can see any, like, there's a heap of total scores. I mean, Fiorini's here, but actually, Took should be back soon, so that's probably one you could watch out for. Same as LDU potentially. I just don't think there's much more interesting that's actually viable. Liam Henry, God, he pissed me off. I was so big on him at the start of the year, and this is like the role I would have loved to see, and he just didn't play like that at all. And now he's playing like he wants every bit of the footy, which is so annoying. 33 disposals, absolutely smashed his five disposals. So, um, I think that Dylan Moore could actually be quite interesting if he gets a bit of a role change, but he's actually quite expensive. It's like he'd just get a big score and then a low score by the looks, which is why his price doesn't differ that much. Otherwise, I think like probably like outside of that, there's not much value left. Um, and I think those are the type of players. Actually, Nemec Henry's been playing ridiculously well. Like this was a sub score. When did he come on? He came on in the third quarter. That's crazy. I was like talking about him as well as like as a pickup like win taker. Um, but the 216 was probably a little bit too much. But like he's been scoring really well when he gets time on ground. Um, and like he was such a game changer for the Crows. It's actually ridiculous he got a 72 from the amount of time he had on ground. I guess the other guys we could talk about is like Sheldrick and stuff as mid forward, but I feel like the boat's missed on them. You don't really want them. So with that, I think we'll leave it at this. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. As I said, yeah, send us through some messages if you have any questions. Otherwise, give us a like and subscribe. At the moment, I've kind of stuck with the same process as the last video because Oliver is out. This gives me another week to kind of assess. I'm just not really sure what I want to do. Potentially could go in, but I'm not quite sure. We're probably going to loop. Well, I think we're just going to play Fife at this point. Oh, no, wait. I could loop you through here, couldn't I? Yeah, I could look. So I can loop Davey with these two, right? Yeah. So that's what I'll probably do. I'll probably loop Fife into Windhager through Davey. And I think VC captain. I might VC led into something a bit riskier. I think maybe I VC led into like I don't know. I really don't like any of these other captain options. I mean Brayshaw, but I mean they play at the same time, so maybe I will just stick with. I'll just play safe. Go Neil into lead and maybe even just captain lead if Neil doesn't go for like 130 or 140. But anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Bit of ramble, but hopefully got through a lot of the options you may have been thinking about. Had a good chat about them. As I said, if you got any questions, if there's anything you want to know, leave them in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. I do have my Twitter link in the description so you can follow me. I mostly just post some crap tweet every now and then about what's going on in the footy or with scores. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.